Hello. We're going to tie up a few loose ends for the for loop that we um, covered previously. So here we go. So the first thing is, yes, this piece of code, which I replicate here, that I just want to make sure our understanding of the for loop is correct. So you can see our for loop is just two lines. There's a statement before the for loop and there's a statement after the for loop. Okay, so yeah, absolutely very important to recognize there's only one print statement inside the for loop. And yes, there's another thing I want to mention here. You see how this for loop, even though it goes through the sequence of numbers from 0 through 4, including 4, but we don't really use any number from the sequence, right? We only do a print. So this for loop is just used to repeat an action. It doesn't really care about what's in the sequence. In such case, is typically um, we we name the variable where we usually get each item from the list with just an underscore. This is a convention. This is nothing really enforced that. It just means we don't care about what's in the sequence. And believe it or not, an underscore is actually a valid Python variable name, but it's usually, again, used to signify something that we don't really care about. Okay, so you should kind of go through, maybe in your head, just see what the expected output to be. I'll just run it, and it is. Hopefully you expect this, that whatever is outside of the loop was printed once, whatever is in the loop is printed the number of times um, in that we want the loop to repeat. Okay, so should be no surprise. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page before we move on to the next one. Okay, so that's that. Now the next thing is a little, it's also sort of interesting. So let me comment this out, and this is the code that we do. So basically, we're doing a repetition of 5 times. We now this time we have a variable I, but we don't really do anything in the inside the body because that's not the point of this exercise. So that's why we put a pass here. We must put something here, otherwise Python's not going to be happy. But since we don't really care about what we do inside the loop, then we put a pass, just like a pass in a if-else thing. That just says it's an empty block of code. Anyway, so after the loop is done, what do you think the value of I is? So pause for a moment, think about it. What do you expect I to be? Run it. I is 4. So why is I 4? Well, it's because we're going through the sequence from 0 through 4, including 4. So the very last pass of the loop is when I gets assigned the value 4. So that's why after the loop is done, I retains that value. For those of you who know C++ and Java, this might look a little odd because in those languages, if you declare a variable inside a loop or as part of a loop, that variable is not visible outside the loop. Whereas Python, it is. Okay, I believe that's what this piece of slide says. This slide says. And so the next thing is we're going to do something a little, even slightly more interesting. I'm going to change this to 0. What do you think I is? Okay, so assuming you have thought about this a little bit, let me run this. Here it says I is not defined. And the reason being range 0 it's going from 0 to 0, but not including 0. So there's nothing in this sequence. It's an empty sequence. If it's an empty sequence, this loop is not executed at all. So I is never assigned a value. That's why when we get to the statement after the loop, it says I is not defined. It never set it to anything. So just a little thing to kind of watch out for. Okay, next question. Given a list, what if we want to modify the list such that each of the lists, its new value is double of what it was before? So we want 1 to become 2, 2 to become 4, 3 to become 6 in this example. Can we do just that? These few lines of code. So what this does is, it loops through the list, and for each item in the list, we multiply by 2, and we print it out at the end. So does that work? Run it. In the end, after we go through everything, the list was not changed. Okay, this might come as a surprise to some of you. So what's happening here is that I, the variable, gets assigned the value of the items in the list, but I is a copy of those items. Then it's I is not the item themselves. Okay, and well, this description is actually slightly inaccurate. When we get to the object-oriented part, it will be more clear. But for now, it's okay to think of I is just a copy of the item. It's I is not the item in the list itself. That's why when we change I, and I did indeed get changed, but the items in the list is not updated. Okay, so how do we change the items themselves then? Okay, remember how we were able to change the item in the list by using this syntax, right? 0 equal to, let's say, if we do that, we change the first one, and hopefully we did change the first one. Right, so there, we changed the first one. So the challenge is, let's do this in the loop to change every single item in the list. So what we have to do is then we still go through we still go through the list, but this time we're gonna get the index. Let's remember, sorry, I probably should not have erased that. We can reference the list itself with an index, and that can change the items themselves, right? So what we actually want to do is to do numbers I multiply equal to 2. However, I must be an index, right? It cannot be an item. So, and the index is going to go from 0 through the last index in the list, which is the length minus 1, right? And if you kind of think about it, well, we want the first index to be 0, second index to be 1, so on and so forth. That can be given by a range list. However, so what is the last index we want? Well, it is the length. We can say 3, okay? We can say 3, and it'll work for this particular list. But as soon as we put another number in the list, it's not going to work because it won't change the last item, the item we just added, because we hard-coded the length of the list in the range, right? So instead, we should just say list length of the list itself, right? In that case, then it doesn't matter how big of a list is. It will change every single number in the list. Okay? Hope that makes sense. And that's what this slide or sequence of slide, just trying to say, I is not the item in the list. It's an index that we'll use into the list to change each item in the list. Okay? And yeah, so that works. Okay, that's how you actually change something in the list. Okay, so here is a little coding exercise for you. So what I'd like you to try is first generate and print of a list of numbers from 0 up to some number n. Okay, make n into a variable, right? So you can change it to whatever. Now, for each number in the list, I'm going to call that number I. Change that number to 2 to the ith power. So yeah, we're taking the ith power of the number. Sorry, we're taking the ith power of 2 in this exercise. And then for each of these operations, print out what occurred. Okay, and then at the end, print out the list again, just to make sure it is changed. So this would be an example for n equals 4, right? The list before the loop is 0, 1, 2, 3. Excuse me. Every step of the way, we raise 2 to the 0th power, 2 to the first power, 2 to the second power, 2 to the third power, so on. And then we print the result. So you can look at this and yeah, it does look right. 2 cubed is 8 and 2 squared is 4, so on and so forth. And after it's done, we print out the list again and make sure the list contains the updated numbers. Okay, so pause the video and give this problem a try. And assuming you've done it, you can verify. You can verify. You can check your code against mine. Oops, I forgot to assign the number 4 to a value n, but doesn't matter. This is one approach to do it. Yours might look similar, I hope. Maybe simpler, maybe longer, but this is one way to do it. Okay? I think that's the end of this video. Oh, well, not quite the end. Okay, one more slide. Excuse me. So, I would just want to conclude by saying that, especially for those who knew other languages, that the Python for loop, as a summary, the Python for loop is used to iterate through, going through sequences, right? Compared to other languages such as C++ and Java, the Python for loop is actually pretty simple. In those other languages, it have this complicated kind of initialization step, a terminating condition, and between each iteration, there's this incremental steps. So Python for loop has none of that. It's just used to iterate through a sequence. So it's fairly simple and straightforward. And the Python for loop has a very, very distinct use case compared to the while loop, which we'll study in a bit. Okay, I believe, yes, this is truly the end of this video.